This episode is presented to you in the form of an audiobook. Think of your life like a book that's already open to the middle. We all walk onto the stage the moment we're born, and eventually, we have to take our final bow, which is death. While we're here, we get to learn the rules, feel the sun on our skin, and figure out how the world works. It all feels familiar and real. But there is a deep mystery on both sides of our story. Before the first page was written, there was only silence. And after the final chapter ends, it's a total unknown. We are living in a bright, busy moment tucked between two great, quiet secrets. What happened before we were born, and what will happen after we die. Because we don't know how the story started or how it ends, we are left wondering why we were even cast in the play. Imagine waking up in a moving car with no memory of the map. If you don't know who started the engine or where the road is leading, it's hard to tell if you should be turning left, right, or just sitting still. It makes you wonder, does anything we do right now actually matter? If the before and after are total mysteries, does our now have a real point? This big, blank space in our history is exactly why humans have been scratching their heads for thousands of years. We've been asking, what is the meaning of life? Since the very first time we looked up at the stars. As a group, we've never found one single answer that everyone agrees on. To keep from feeling overwhelmed by all that unknown, many of us pick a path, a belief, a hobby, or a philosophy to help us feel a little more at home in the middle of the mystery. Some people find their answers in the stars. They believe a powerful creator built this vast universe and placed us inside it for a reason. In this story, every choice we make is like a seed planted today that will grow into our forever home once we leave this world. Others find their spark right here on the ground. For them, the whole point of being alive is the warmth of a hand to hold, the laughter shared with friends, and the deep bonds we build with family. Then there are those who think that just being here, breathing, seeing, and existing is a gift all on its own. But then, there is a much simpler path. Imagine a book where the pages are completely blank. This is the world of the nihilist. To them, there is no grand design, no special purpose, and no point to the plot. All action, suffering, emotions, both good and bad, are entirely senseless and meaningless. In their eyes, we are not heading toward a destination, and our actions don't reflect into forever. It is the quiet, heavy belief in absolutely nothing. Most of us have hit a wall where everything suddenly feels empty. It's that heavy feeling in your chest that whispers, "None of this matters, and I don't have a real purpose." This usually happens when we are standing in the middle of a bridge. We've let go of the old stories our parents told us, but we haven't reached the other side to find our own yet. We are learning, growing, and seeing the world through our own eyes for the first time. In this gap, a tiny three-letter word starts to echo. Why? It's a small word, but it acts like a sledgehammer. You can take your deepest beliefs, the things you think are the solid floor beneath your feet, and hit them with that one question. Why do you do what you do? Why do you believe what you believe? Where did these ideas come from? If you keep asking why, at every turn, the solid ground eventually turns into sinking sand. You keep digging and digging until your shovel hits nothing but air. Even with all the massive temples of religion and the brilliant labs of science, that one little word still wins. We have figured out how the stars burn and how our bodies work. But when it comes to that final why, the world falls silent. We eventually reach a point where there are no more answers left. Just a vast, quiet nothing. For the nihilist, this is the end of the road. They look into that deep silence and decide there isn't an answer, because there was never a question to begin with. There is no hidden why waiting to be found. As the thinker Alan Watts once put it, life is just a short, straight line. A quick trip from the hospital bed where you're born to the fire where you're laid to rest. The word nihilism tells the whole story. It comes from the Latin word nihil, which means nothing, combined with ism, which means belief. Put them together, and you get the belief in nothing. But just knowing the definition doesn't give us the full picture. It's like looking at a map of a desert. You can see the name, but you can't feel the heat of the sun or the vastness of the empty sand. To truly understand nihilism, we have to look deeper than just a dictionary entry. It's a common mistake to think nihilism is just a fancy word for being grumpy or sad. Many people confuse nihilism for pessimism, but they are actually very different. A pessimist is like someone who watches a cloudy sky and is certain it's going to pour rain. They believe that things will generally turn out for the worst, and that, in the long run, the bad guys win. Pessimists actually believe in things like good and bad. They just think humans aren't quite good enough to make the world a better place. Nihilists, however, see the world through a completely different lens. They don't think the world is bad or good, because they don't believe those things exist at all. To a nihilist, the universe is just a giant machine that keeps on turning. There is no moral scoreboard in the sky. They believe that humans simply made up the ideas of right and wrong to make sense of things. In their mind, the world just is, and all the labels we put on it are just stories we tell ourselves. Take the glass cup metaphor, for instance. Most people use it to test how you see the world. The optimist smiles and says the glass is half full, finding something to be happy about. The pessimist sighs and says it's half empty, focusing on what's missing. But the nihilist doesn't even join the argument. They would tell you to just throw the glass away entirely. To them, it doesn't matter if the glass is overflowing or bone dry. Full, empty, good, bad, it's all the same in the end. Since everything eventually turns to dust and we all face the same finish line, the state of the glass is just a tiny, meaningless detail in a world that doesn't care. Nihilism often gets tossed into the same bucket as ideas like cynicism or just not caring about anything. But if you look closer, these ways of thinking are actually worlds apart. Think of a cynic as someone who has lost faith in people. They believe that deep down, everyone is just looking out for themselves. If you do something nice, a cynic thinks you're only doing it to look good or get a reward. But here is the catch. By saying people aren't good, the cynic is admitting that they still believe good is a real thing. It's just a goal that humans can't reach. A nihilist doesn't share that view at all. They don't look at a person and see a selfish heart. They just see a person. To them, good and evil aren't real things waiting to be found in the world. They are just labels we've stuck onto actions, like stickers on a box. A nihilist doesn't think people are bad or good because they don't believe those categories exist in the first place. To them, the world is a blank canvas, and any colors we see on it are just tricks of the light. Then there are the apathetic people, those who simply shrug their shoulders. They don't necessarily doubt that life has a point. They just can't be bothered to look for it. They might believe there's a big meaning out there somewhere, but they're too busy or disinterested to care. A nihilist is different because they have actually looked and decided there is no grand design at all. To them, there is no meaning to find, no matter how hard you search. This leads us to a strange puzzle called the paradox of nihilism. If you say you believe in nothing, then nothing becomes the very thing you believe in. You've turned nothing into a foundation for your thoughts, but the moment you have a belief to hold on to, you aren't truly a nihilist anymore, because a nihilist is supposed to have no beliefs at all. It's like trying to walk into a room that isn't there. The moment you step inside, you've proven that something exists. Nihilism is a bit of an oddball in the world of big ideas. Most philosophies were built by thinkers in quiet libraries, but nihilism actually started in stories and novels before it ever became a serious subject for study. Because it began as a creative invention, its definition is a bit messy. Over time, people have tried to organize it by sorting it into different buckets. First, there is political nihilism. These thinkers are like the ultimate house cleaners. They believe that for humans to truly grow, we have to tear down every building we've built, every government, every social rule, and every religious structure. They want to clear the deck completely to see what happens next. Then, we have ethical nihilism. This is the idea that right and wrong are just pretend rules made up by the crowd. To an ethical nihilist, there is no such thing as a sin or a good deed in the eyes of the universe. They argue that we should ignore these social handcuffs so we can be truly free to do whatever we want, whenever we want. Finally, there is the most famous version, existential nihilism. This is the big why we've been exploring. It is the simple, heavy realization that life has no built-in value or grand purpose. It's the idea that we are just here, and that's all there is to it. Of all the different types, this is the one that really gets people thinking about their place in the stars. To a nihilist, things like governments, churches, and even the rules of your neighborhood are like invisible fences. They see these systems as blocks that stop us from being truly free. They ask a tough question. If you aren't allowed to do exactly what you want, are you actually free? Or have we all just put ourselves in mental handcuffs because we're too afraid to take them off? Imagine scrolling through a website late at night and seeing a debate. If you had to choose, would you save your pet or a stranger? Almost everyone picks their pet. When someone asks, "Wait, why is a human life worth more than an animal's?" the room usually goes silent. People might stammer or make excuses, but they can't find a solid, logical why that everyone agrees on. This is exactly where the nihilist stands. They point out that if we can't explain why we follow these deep-seated rules, then maybe the rules don't actually mean anything. So why do we keep following them? The truth is, admitting that life has no plan and no rules is terrifying. It's a cold, lonely thought that can feel like a heavy weight on your chest. We cling to these invisible chains because the alternative, agreeing that everything is meaningless, is just too much for most of us to handle. Take a second and really let that sink in. If life is just a blank page and nothing we do carries any real weight, then everything we've built starts to look very different. Think of the giant leaps in science, the high-tech gadgets in our pockets, our dreams of walking on Mars, and the brave fights for human rights. We've come so far and worked so hard, yet in the eyes of a nihilist, it might all just be a giant waste of time, a tiny flicker of light in the dark that doesn't change a single thing in the vast universe. It's a strange feeling to think that all our triumphs and all our heartbreaks eventually add up to zero. Every mountain we climb and every tear we shed might lead to the same empty finish line. But there is a flip side to this heavy thought. If nothing truly matters, then the pressure is off. We don't have to carry the weight of the world or solve the giant puzzle of the universe. Instead, we can just stand back, look at the beautiful mess of it all, and share a laugh at the sheer madness of being here. Friedrich Nietzsche was a bit of a tightrope walker in the world of ideas. He managed to argue both for and against nihilism at the exact same time, which made him one of the most interesting philosophers to ever live. On one hand, he pushed for nihilism by saying that the universe doesn't come with an instruction manual. There is no hidden order or grand structure to the world, except for the ones we make up in our own heads. He famously suggested that every truth we hold onto is actually a lie, because there is no such thing as a true world waiting to be discovered. To him, nihilism was like a giant spotlight that would reveal all our oldest beliefs, especially the ones from Western culture, as nothing more than dusty old myths. This led to his most famous and misunderstood line, "God is dead." He wasn't talking about a person in the clouds literally passing away. Instead, he was using a metaphor to describe a massive shift in the world. He saw that religious rules were losing their grip on society. People were starting to stop looking at ancient books for answers and were beginning to chart their own paths. By saying God is dead, he meant that the old foundation for what was right and true had crumbled, leaving humans to find their own meaning in a world that no longer gave it to them for free. While he saw it coming, Nietzsche was also terrified of what nihilism would do to us. He warned that if we let nothingness take over, our civilization would eventually hit a dead end, like a river running into a desert. He feared it would lead to a massive disaster, and if you look at the darkest parts of human history, you can see why. When a society's traditions, beliefs, and common values crumble away, a dangerous void is left behind. Think about the heaviest parts of our history. If life is truly meaningless, and we are all just a random collection of dust and atoms, how can we say that someone like Hitler was evil? If nothing matters, then his attempt to wipe out an entire culture is just another event in a cold universe. Deep down, almost all of us feel that those actions were a horrible nightmare. We know it in our bones. But here is the trap. If we can't explain why we feel that way using logic, we have no way to convince someone else to feel the same. We lose our ground. That was Nietzsche's great fear, that without a shared sense of meaning, we would lose our moral compass and drift into a world where anything, no matter how cruel, could be justified. Some people still point the finger at Nietzsche for the horrors of the Nazi era. Even though he warned everyone about the dangers of nothingness, he kept talking about it as if it were an unavoidable fire we had to walk through. He believed that if humanity could survive the total breakdown of its old ways, we could finally start a brand new chapter for our species. To him, the goal wasn't just to destroy things for the sake of it. He believed we needed to build a fresh set of values, a new way of deciding what is good and right that wasn't tied to the old prejudices of the past. He looked at it like home improvement. Just because you tear down an old shaky house doesn't mean you should live on the street. Instead, clearing away the rubble gives you the perfect empty lot to build a much bigger, stronger, and better home for everyone. Take a moment to stop and look at the world around you. If you scroll through social media, it feels like we are standing on the edge of a giant wave of nothingness once again. For a long time, religion was the compass that told us what was right and wrong. But for many people today, that compass is broken. Everywhere you look, people are tearing down old traditions and walking away from long-held cultural beliefs. Instead, everyone is trying to draw their own map. You can find almost any behavior, no matter how shocking or strange it might seem, and there will be a group of people online fiercely defending it. They argue that they have every right to do exactly what they want. And when you really think about it, the hardest part is that no one can find a solid reason to tell them they're wrong. If you ask, why shouldn't they do that? The world just shrugs. That is the big question that continues to go unanswered. Bit by bit, humanity keeps moving the goalposts of what is allowed and what isn't. Eventually, we might reach a day where no one can tell anyone else they are wrong. After all, on what ground would we even stand to judge them? It reminds me of what William Shakespeare once wrote, that life is like a shadow or a nervous actor who spends an hour performing on stage only to disappear into the silence. To him, life was a story told by a fool, lots of noise and drama, but in the end, it means absolutely nothing. If it's true that life has no grand plan and we are here for no specific reason, then maybe our best move is to simply make the most of it. We don't have to worry about whether the glass is half full or half empty. We can just toss the glass aside and drink straight from the tap until we've had our fill. In a world with no big answers, perhaps just being alive, breathing, and experiencing the moment is a good enough reason to keep going.